This conference will now be recorded.
Eddie, when we start, we follow the agenda that is on the screen.
Correct.
And then for the roll call, I just call the name of everybody, and then those persons that I don't have the ID here, I will then ask for them to identify themselves, and also to remind everybody that although we know each other, when you talk, please say your name. Again, Miguel Rolón, council staff, before you talk, so it will be easier to keep the record.
Correct. I'll give everybody a briefing before we start.
Okay.
Unmute your phones. Unmute your phones while others are talking. Mute your phone. So forth.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill Cordero, language interpreter, reporting for duty. Sorry about the internet trouble.
Thank you. We didn't notice. Don't worry about it.
Good morning, I'm here.
Identify
Okay,
yourself.
Alida.
Miguel,
Oh, Alida.
Yes.
Miguel,
¿Qué?
Cedric me llama ahora que se va a conectar ya mismo. Está teniendo problemas, se está conectando.
Está bien. Yo veo que tú empieces de dónde
No.
salió la idea y eso.
No, tú no.
Oye,
No.
Dave, I saw Dave. You're there, Gobser? I think he's there. Did you join, Dave?
To hear his words, we can hear him.
Interpreter is connected to the language platform and ready to go at will.
thank you, Bill.
Toby Tobias is present.
Okay, Eddie, we can start. It's 10 o'clock.
Okay, good morning. Welcome everybody to our DAP meeting. It's June the 9th, 10 a.m., 2020. We're gonna do just some housekeeping. We're gonna do a roll call. You're gonna identify yourself. Also, when you're not talking, you can unmute your, mute your phone, and every time you need to speak, you need to identify yourself for the record. So we're going to start right now with a roll call.
Okay, I will call your name, and please repeat your name and your affiliation. Starting with Natalia Perdomo.
Good morning, Natalia Perdomo, Council staff.
Diana Martino.
Good morning, Diana Martino, Council staff.
Graciela García Moliner.
Graciela García Moliner, Council staff. Buenos días.
Gerson Martinez.
Good morning, Gerson Martinez, Daps and Croix.
Nelson Crespo.
Good morning, everyone. Nelson Crespo, the AP Chair, Puerto Rico.
Yahai Rivera.
Buenos días, Liaison Rivera, Council staff.
David Gobser.
Present, DAP, St. Croix.
Nicole Griot. Nicole Griot. Okay, Michelle Duval.
Good morning, Michelle Duval, Council Consultant for the Strategic Plan.
Thank you. Edward Schuster.
Edward Schuster, DAP Chair.
William Tobias.
William Tobias, present, DAP member.
Carlos Sachete. Carlos Sachete. Okay, Alida Ortiz.
And Alida Ortiz, Outreach and Education Advisory Panel.
Carlos Fachete. Okay, Bill Cordero.
Good morning, Bill Cordero, staff interpreter.
Vanessa Ramirez.
Good morning, Vanessa Ramirez, Council Member, Commercial Fishermen, Puerto Rico.
Mike Funk. Shannon Calais.
Hi, Shannon Kelly, Southeast Fisheries Science Center, Miami.
Cristina Olan Martinez. Kathy Siegfried.
Good morning, Katie Siegfried, Southeast Fisheries Science Center, Miami.
Sarah Stephenson.
Good morning, Sarah Stevenson, Southeast Regional Office.
Adrián Rios. Adrián Rios. Okay, let me go back again to Carlos Fachete.
Yeah, Carlos Fishery, council member. I lost internet and so did Michael Funk, but I'm using my phone data. So I'm back on.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, anybody that comes in after we start the meeting, I will announce the name so they can introduce themselves. I have Cedric Takin.
Present. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. I will check the chat for you. I believe Graciela and I also are patrolling the chat in case we need to tell you anything regarding the people coming in and out of questions. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we went through the roll call. Any adoptions of the agenda?
We're in a motion to adopt the agenda and a vote. For the vote, Mr. Chairman, rather than calling for each one, just ask, is there no opposition, then the motion carries.
Okay.
I move to adopt.
We need a second. We need a second.
Second.
Miguel,
seconded?
reading the names of the people when they talk to identify.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. When speaking on the mic, just as a reminder, state your name and then you say what you want to say. So who seconded the motion? Say your name first and then go ahead.
Dave Gubser, second the motion.
Okay.
Motion
Is there
was
any
made,
abstention?
motion was
I'm
made
sorry?
by William Tobias.
Okay, is there any abstentions?
Any opposition? No abstention.
Any oppositions? Hearing none, the motion carries.
And then, Diana, how many of the members are present? Do we have 7 or more?
We have 5.
Okay, we don't have the quorum that we need, it's 7. However, given that this is a meeting for orientation, not for taking any vote, we can go on and continue. If 2 more members join in, then we will declare the quorum as they join in, and I will tell you, Mr. Chairman. You can proceed with the agenda now.
Good morning. Can you hear
Okay.
me? This is Michael Funk. I'm on the telephone.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm with St. Croix DAP.
Thank you. ¿Lo sumaste, Diana?
Sí, él estaba sumado.
Ok, gracias.
Okay,
Miguel,
so
Miguel, this is Gerson Martinez. Can you state the names of the persons who are missing? Maybe we can call them on the cell phone and probably get them to join.
Okay, Patricia Scott. Diana, can you read the missing people?
Sure. Tom Daly, Burton Brown, Patricia Scout, Mike Fuller, Marsha Taylor, Robert Thomas, Michelle Fogg. And the rest are ex-officio members.
Okay,
Which
Paskov
are
and
Nicole Angeli, Raimundo Espinosa, and Orion Static.
okay. Okay, then, Mr. Chairman, the next presentation came with an idea that Diana was brainstorming with herself, and she was wondering how the fishermen are doing during the COVID emergency, and how they will cope with this market drop and other questions. So she asked Cedric Takin how he was doing. So between the two of them came up with around 15 questions, and we would like to ask Cedric to address the group, same way that we did yesterday, so he can tell us so far how the situation is regarding the questions that were addressed by Diana and Cedric at that time. Cedric?
Cedric Taquin, DAP Puerto Rico, for the record. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Gerson here.
Okay, good morning, guys. Yeah, it was just this general questions that I had, seeing what was happening during this pandemic, where practically all recreational fishing was closed, and commercial fishermen were limited, but they were fishing, and how they had to reinvent themselves to be able to keep selling their fish, and you know, dealing with the issue that most restaurants were closed, and a lot of people were looking for fish around the market. So basically, we just wanted to. I thought it was a good time to collect data and do some questions and ask the guys, for any future disaster You know, how did it go? How did you have to reinvent yourselves? Did you find new customers? Did you have to butcher fish? Were you catching fish with the doubt that maybe you wouldn't be able to sell it? Were you catching only what you thought you could sell versus just catching, you know, whatever you could catch during the day and then trying to find customers? So yeah, I think it's a very interesting times, and I was curious to see what everybody had to say about how their fish selling went during these times.
Okay, thank you, Cedric. So at this time, we wanted to hear from the St. Croix DAP membership, and we asked Carlos Fachete to present to us the situation in St. Croix. We would like to hear from him what he found out, and also from the DAP members to add to his presentation.
So it's my turn?
Yep.
Okay. Before I start, I want to mention some information on roll call. Mike Fuller asked to be excused, and Tom Daly is at Fish and Wildlife Office getting his stamps and DUNS number and putting up his losses for the fishing for Maria, just in case.
Okay.
So what I did during the pandemic, and I wanna say for the record, Scott Cross had called me like the first month during the pandemic to ask me about the effects of the COVID-19 to the fishers' economic stability. And then Miguel called me and also asked me to get information from the fishermen. So this is what I got. And I went to the different fishing sites on the roadside, the Lorraine Fish Market, and I did not get down all the way into Frederickson proper, but I got as far as Kmart West, where there are a couple guys that sell there. So at the beginning of the pandemic, the fishers were not too concerned about the virus efforts. However, this only lasted for about a week. When the governor of the USVI implemented a state of emergency and stay-at-home order, yeah.
Hello. This is Gerson. Marcia is trying to log in, but she doesn't have the information. Can somebody send her the login information, please?
It's in her email.
I'll send it.
Yeah, she can go to the council webpage, and there's the information there. Also, it is in the last part of the email that we sent to all.
Don't worry, I'll send it to her right now.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing where I was.
First paragraph.
So when the governor of the, should I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So when the governor of the USVI implemented a state of emergency and stay-at-home order, the fishers realized that sales would drop. So many fishers reinvented themselves by contacting their customers and had them come to the fisher's house, or the fisher would go to the customer's house. When the government of the USVI implemented guidelines to mitigate for COVID-19, non-essential employees were allowed to work remotely from their homes, and essential employees were given reduced hours. By the way, that is still in play. The governor included fishermen as essential employees because they were providing food for the residents. The fishers again reinvented themselves, and at their selling sites by the roadside or market, they would have in place 2 bucks so that they or transaction. The greatest impact to the fishers came when restaurants had to close. This reduced sales for a selected few fishers that sell product to.
We are having trouble with your connection, Carlos.
Something wrong?
Yeah, it's kind of broken.
With my connection.
Yeah. Now it's back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, so so how far should I go back? Not very far.
Buckets
Hello.
of water. Buckets of water.
Hello.
Carlos.
You were on the buckets of water.
Oh.
Buckets of water.
All right. So they had buckets. Okay. So wow. So they had placed buckets of water and liquid soap so that they or their customers could wash their hands after every transaction. Somebody has to mute their mic. There's a background noise there. So the greatest impact to the fishers came when restaurants had to close. This reduced sales to a selected few fishers that sell fish product to restaurants. However, some restaurants were allowed to have to-go dining, and sales started to pick up a little, except for the lobster, which was an important food product for restaurants that catered to tourism. Fish were through the roof, according to many fishers. They stated that people had to stay home and cook more often, so sales were very good. Also, the off-island workers that lived at the Lime Tree Refinery housing, which ranged in the numbers of around 1,200 workers, and who could not go to restaurants, started buying fish in large amounts to include not only reef fish and shellfish, but also whole pelagics. One pelagic fisher, according to a district advisory panel member, stated that he could not keep up with the demand for pelagics such as whole mahi, tuna, and kingfish. Approximately 6 to 7 weeks into the pandemic and after the CDC guidelines were announced, the government started relaxing the stay-at-home order and implemented mandatory wear of face masks for all residents. All the fishers, including those who scale fish for customers, were following guidelines and wearing face masks while making transactions. And the customers also would approach the fishers at the selling sites on the roadside and markets wearing face masks. These measures allowed the consumer to feel safe and the fishers recovered quickly economically. The highest economic impact by COVID-19 was to the charter for hire fishing industry because tourism suddenly stopped. Those companies incurred 100% losses and have not recovered to date. This might change in the next few weeks since the governor recently announced that the USVI has effectively eliminated the community spread of COVID-19 through actions taken by the government of the USVI and the residents, so they plan to enter the blue phase, meaning hotels will be able to return. The fishers of very to be resilient, and they should be commended for the ability to quickly reinvent themselves and adapt to the situations. Life is not what it used to be, and we won't know whether we will get back to normal or live a new normal. I would like to answer their fish sales were extremely good. Their problems were with the same thing with lobster and tourism, to a point where they had to reduce the price per pound to about $2 less than normal. I could say that for St. Croix, and according to the fishermen that I spoke to, no prices were reduced for any product being sold. Everything stayed normal. And that's my final.
We have Maria Lopez Merced, Scott Crossom. Please identify yourself, Maria first and Scott second.
Yeah, good morning. This is Maria Lopez with the Southeast Regional Office from NOAA Fisheries.
Thank you. And Scott Crossom.
This is Scott Crossom, the economist at the Southeast Fisheries Science Center in Miami.
Thank you.
Miguel, excuse me. I just received a call from Burton Brown. He has been trying to log in but has not been able to. So he's asking, in case he cannot log in, he's asking to be excused.
Okay, thank you. Then Mr. Chairman, Gerson wanted to share his experience during the COVID. Gerson?
Yes, I'm here.
Fine, if you want to do it now.
Yeah. We were wondering if you could address the issue of the prices of the lobster, the queen cone, and how the market have behaved for the fishers in St. Croix,
Well,
according to your experience.
I usually do wholesale. I never deal directly with customers unless they go home. But our sales were down towards selling conch to St. Thomas. They were only taking 500 pounds a week of conch. But the sales here in St. Croix, we were doing pretty good. One of our customer for lobster continued open takeout only, and he was not getting enough lobster from us. So our prices, as Mr. Fishery said, stayed up there, and the demand is great. We cannot complain how our government permitted us as fishermen to be essential workers, and they permitted us to go there and bring local fresh caught fish for the people of St. Croix.
How much is the lobster price now compared to before COVID and the queen cone?
I think we are the only ones that are selling lobster for $12 a pound because we buy from all the other fishermen. So we buy for 10 and we make a $2 profit margin there. So we try, you guys are knowing now, but we don't tell that to the people who we buy from because everybody thinks that the lobster is being sold for 10 and they just want to get rid of the whole catch. So we pay them 10 and we sell for 12. So the problem in the past used to be when we had too much fishermen, that when you're catching too much of one product and you cannot get rid of it, you tend to bring down the price. So to prevent that, we buy from everybody for 10.
I see.
Sounds like catch share to me.
That's why I use your sugar daddy.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, anybody else who wants to address the experience on the COVID in St. Croix?
Is there anybody else that would like to talk about it?
This is William Tobias. I have a couple comments to make in regard to recreational fishing. The place that I frequented most often, which was on a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuge at Sandy Point, was closed. I was unable to fish there, still unable to fish there, and have resorted to fishing in other areas around St. Croix, but not as productive as that particular location. I have also observed a number of recreational fishers fishing along the southeastern shoreline in the East End Marine Park in the permitted area. So fishing was still active from the shoreline. However, my catches at least were very much reduced. Thank you.
Ready? Please go ahead with the agenda.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. Thanks, Toby. Edward Schuster for the record. What I observed was there were a lot, like what Carlos said in his report, there was a lot of people out there just buying fresh food because people were avoiding large crowds like supermarkets. So they were going more to the customers. I mean, to the fish. Customers were going more to the fishermen. But then what I observed on my daily work route was there was nothing really to do. So, kids were out of school. Parents were really doing just a household grouping thing. And they were like taking their kids out, just basically to the shorelines or docks, wherever they could go and cast. And I guess whatever was edible, they took home. But that was my observation, really.
Yeah, I'd just like to finish adding up over here. Cedric, for the record, may I speak?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that it was very interesting to see many fishermen contacting me that normally just sell wholesale. For example, $7 or $8 a pound for bottom fish. Now they're selling fish between $9 and $10 to families, to houses. It's taking them a little longer to sell the fish, but they're actually getting more money for their fish. I've tried to buy some fish for my restaurant, and they wanted to give me prices of retail prices. And I was like, hey man, I've been buying fish from you for years. Help me out with the price a little bit, because we as restaurants, we are as for myself and many of the other restaurants that I know that have been working with a carry out only or delivery, we have been selling cheaper plates. Plate that I would normally sell for, I don't know, anywhere between $25 and $30 for a plate. I'm selling in a foam tray in a plastic bag to go for about $20, $22. So I've had to do like almost a 20%, 22, almost 30% discount on what I'm offering, because obviously I'm not offering the dining experience, the air conditioning, the waitress, etc. So it's good to see that at the beginning there was a stress of how they were going to sell the fish, and right now I see a lot of them very comfortable with selling to just regular people who, like the boy said, they're staying home, they're cooking. People aren't eating out. The restaurants are mostly still closed. Nobody wants to go and hang out in a big supermarket and be within a big group of people. So it's very interesting to see this happening, and I'm glad it took a couple of days for many of these fishermen that I know to get back on track. But as soon as they started marketing, obviously using things like Facebook, WhatsApp, etc., and kind of like reinventing themselves in this way, making smaller bags, cutting the fish in smaller portions, they're doing pretty well. And I'm pretty excited to see that. Obviously, a lot of people on the street, regular people that were always buying fish out of the supermarket in little vacuum packed bags from God knows where and God knows when, they're going back to the shore. They're picking up fish from their local fishermen. They're buying fruits and vegetables from the local fruit stand. They're asking me for recipes. They want to know how to fillet a fish. So I am very excited about this boom. I think a lot of people have realized that you can buy stuff very easily at the supermarket imported, but you can also get a lot of great products from the shoreline or from the mountains here on the island. And this has been a very good experience, a very good learning experience for fishermen, for farmers, and obviously for people that were staying at home, doing nothing, checking out recipes, watching cooking shows live, and I think this will help make people appreciate more, when they go to the restaurant and when they say they're being offered local fish. Another thing that I think that they realize also is the price. Many people didn't know that fish cost, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10, $12 a pound. I'm seeing fillet fish for up to $20 a pound, which is reasonable. This is what it's worth. When I buy a fish for $8 or $9 a pound, gutted, and I fillet it, there's the yield percentage. Most fish don't yield more than a 30, 40%. So when you do the calculations, that fillet costs up to $20 a pound. But many people hadn't bought fish from a fisherman before. They're used to buying these pre-packed stuff that come from who knows where, which is obviously cheaper. And some people were kind of shocked, like, what do you mean $10 a pound? What do you mean $12 a pound? Because the last time they bought Dorado fillet perhaps was 5, 8, 10 years ago, when it was $5 a pound for a fillet. But now we're talking 10, 12, up to $15 a fillet. And I think it's a good moment where people have actually appreciated and realized that, it's a tough job. It's not easy to find, because many people have been running around trying to get fish, and they call me and they're like, "Senator, where can I get fish?" I was like, good luck. Here are a couple of numbers, but there's it's not easy. And we're surrounded with water, and you can't just go at any moment down to the coast and pick up the nicest piece of fish, because there's limited supply, limited fishermen, and whatever gets caught gets sold fast. So it's I'm glad everybody is going to have these stories of how they had to work throughout these times, and it's a great way for people to realize how important we actually are as fishermen, as restaurateurs, and what a huge part of the economy we are. So that would be it. Hello?
Miguel, are you there? Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, that would be it. That would be the end of my of what I just wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, next is a break, or you can just go ahead and have the item-based presentation and continue until you finish 12 o'clock. Also, the chair has the authority to extend the end of the meeting 15, 30 minutes, depending on the discussion that you may have. These three presentations are key to the future of the council, let's say. And at this time, Mr. Chairman, we need to decide how you would like to proceed. Sorry for the noise outside, but all the days in the month, this is when they do our pages.
Okay. I saw that Marcia joined. Marcia, you want to identify yourself? Marcia? For who all is listening, is everybody okay? Do you want to take a break or do you want to continue with the agenda?
Continue with the agenda, Nicole Griot.
Okay. Everybody else is good? Gerson, you good? Dave, Toby?
Continue with the agenda.
I'm good.
Okay.
But I'm good.
Okay. So next is the island-based FMP update.
Okay, this is Maria Lopez. Graciela, if you can, yeah, there you go.
Excuse me again. I just received a message from Pascal. He's also trying to enter the meeting, but has not been able to.
Franco, Diana.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
So good morning, everybody. I'm going to give you a quick overview of where we are with the island-based fishery management plans. So as you remember, in December 2019, the Caribbean Fishery Management Council submitted each one of the plans, one for St. Thomas, St. John, one from St. Croix, and one from Puerto Rico, to the Secretary for review and approval. That happened in December 2019. And this is when NOAA Fisheries takes over the process because we have to deal with preparing the regulations that will implement these plans. So right now, NOAA Fisheries Southeast Regional Office is in developing the proposed rule and associated documents. And there's going to be two opportunities for comment that are going to be coming up. One of them is the notice of availability of the fishery management plans, which is going to be published soon, and it's going to have a 60-day comment period. And what this is telling the public that the Caribbean Fishery Management Council prepared these fishery management plans, and they're going to be put out there for persons to look at them, to read them, and comment. The instructions are going to come out with a fishery bulletin that is going to be available in the council webpage and also in NIMS in our webpage. So that hasn't happened yet, but we will let you know when this is going to be available and how you are going to be able to comment on it. So this is 60 days. And then the also opportunity for comment is the proposed rule. So the proposed rule is going to be published probably close to the end period of the notice of availability. And it's going to have the same thing. We're going to do a fishery bulletin, and we're going to let you know how you can access the documents, how you can read them, and how to comment. So those are your two opportunities. While all of this is happening, the Southeast Regional Office Protected Resources Division is working on a biological opinion, which is a document that evaluates the effect that each one of the fishery management plans, the fisheries that are pursued under each one of the plans, have on species that are listed under an Endangered Species Act. And this is something that is always done whenever there is an action, or wherever there is an amendment to any of the plans. So we're working on that. These are things that take some time, but they're making really good progress. And these are all documents that need to be completed before the island-based FMPs can be actually implemented. So when after the comment period for the notice of availability after the proposed rule, the next step is the publication of a final rule. And then after we publish the final rule, 30 days later, this is when the FMPs are actually implemented. So the goal that we have right now, and we're working really hard to make this happen, is to have the plans applicable for the 2021 fishing season. That means that all of the management measures that are in each one of the FMPs are going to be hopefully implemented during 2021. In the meantime, the Council will continue discussing actions for potential amendments to each one of the island-based FMPs as they desire or need. So that means that when the Council meet, and if you have any actions that you would like the Council to look at, to consider for a future amendment to each one of your plans, remember now it's going to be one plan for each one of the islands, you can request the Council to do that and look at it. So this is where we are right now, and we're going to keep you updated at the next council meeting to see what other progress we have been making to get these plans in place. Now I'll take any questions if anybody has one.
Edward Schuster for the record. So Maria, what you say, would this be done by a motion by a council member, like for example our representative Carlos, if we wanted to implement something?
So how it's done is that I believe that, and Miguel, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that your representative, you have representatives in the council, and you can bring up to them what actions you would like to take. And I believe Carlos was mentioning something yesterday about modifying bag limits for the yellowtail snapper. So that is something that can be brought to the council attention, and then the council will decide, you know, if they want to ask staff to look into this or start preparing like a white paper or looking for alternatives. And we will be happy to do that, but the council will have to approve. I don't think it needs to be a motion coming from the DAP, but Miguel, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It will be something that you decide as a group that you would like to pursue. But also keep in mind that this is going to be, any amendment will happen after the plans are implemented. But the good thing is that if you start working on it now, it will take less time, because as you all know, these things take quite a bit of time to get from the development process to all the way to the implementation.
Yeah, Maria is correct, and we are planning to have at the August meeting, we will ask members of the DAPs, members of the council, to bring items that you would like the council to consider once the island-based FMPs are approved. And what Maria is saying is that this will save time, because whenever the council decides to look at any particular item for management, there's a lot of work that had to be done to prepare the white paper, etc. So Maria's idea is that the sooner we get those items on the table, the better, so we can start working on them by the time that the island-based FMP is approved. And we will have also meetings of the DAPs in August to ask a couple of questions regarding ecosystem-based management and other questions that the National Fisheries Service is addressing at this time regarding amendments to the Act and other actions that you will receive the information on due time.
Thank you, Miguel. Any other questions regarding the progress for the island-based fishery management plans or future amendments?
Can you hear me? This is Marcia Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, I was just wondering, is the FNP posted any place that we could take a look at it? Because I remember working on it, but I'm not sure I saw the final version.
Yes, I believe there is a version in the website of the council. But my suggestion right now, the notice of availability is going to be published soon. We're expecting maybe within the next 2 weeks, and then the documents are going to be there as well. So you can look at the council website and also in our website, and I can share with council staff the location so you can access it. So we are going to be posting the documents, the most updated versions, which is just basically the version that the council approved in December 2019. Probably, you know, we usually, like if there's any typos or things like that, we fix them, but it should be the same one that the council has right now on their website.
Great, thank you. If there's any way you could email those out, or I guess email the link, that would be most helpful.
Absolutely, I will do that.
Lady Carlos Fachete has a question.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Carlos.
yeah. This is actually for Miguel. How would I go about putting into an agenda separating yellowtail from the recreational bag limit that's already in play to do an amendment?
Just send me an email and we put it in the agenda.
Okay.
That will
Okay,
be
I'll
for
do that.
that will be for the August meeting, since this agenda is already sent to the Federal Register for
Okay.
actions such as that one. So for the August meeting, that will be 11 and 12. Just send us an email and we will include it in the agenda. And
Okay.
that goes through for Eddie or any other member of the DAP that will have an idea that you would like the council to consider.
Okay. Let me just make a note of this here. One more question. I think this will be for Maria. I believe that the island-based FMP for St. Croix has new species added to management. Do we, after the plan is approved, is that when we're gonna go back into it to determine the ACLs for those new species?
Yeah, so Carlos, the FMPs already have the ACLs for all the species. Remember that through, I think through the last 2 or 3 years, the council have been working with the Science Center and the SSC developing an ABC control rule and other actions how to determine the ACL for all the species. So you're gonna find, when you take a look at the document, chapter 5 of the document, or each one of the island-based FMPs, is gonna be what we call the action plan. It would have a list of all the management measures that will be applicable for the island. And in there, you're going to find a section that is listing the annual catch limits, and you're going to have a table in there that will list what the annual catch limit for that species is, as determined by the council. So everything is already determined right now for those species, for the new species and for the old species.
Okay. All right. Chapter 5. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
But it's determined, if I may, this is Graciela, it's determined as to the version that it's available right now. You do have a comment period of 60 days and then another 30 days to comment on any of the actions that have that will be implemented through the FMPs.
Yes, thank you, Graciela, for that. Yeah, so all of you, you look at the FMPs and also the proposed rule, you're going to have an opportunity to make any comments and to submit any comments that you would like us, NIMS, to consider from any item that is included in any of those 2 documents, as Graciela said.
Any other question for Maria? If not, Mr. Chairman, we can go to the next agenda item with Adrian Rios.
Okay, moving along. Adrian Rios.
Hi. Hi everyone, this is Adrian Rios from the Southeast Fisheries Science Center. My audio good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, I will just request the screen sharing.
Yeah, because I still have, but I think borrowed. I don't have.
How do I do that? Oh, there we go. Excellent. Hopefully a couple seconds and you'll see that.
Yes, we can see it.
9:45. Do I have to be fasting or no? Or no fasting?
1 second.
Somebody's got to mute their phone.
Okay. And that should be because I have to be in
1 second. sorry, that's
I
my
need to
office
get
mate.
10 minutes.
I'll get started now. Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to be presenting Spiny Lobster. This material was previously presented to the Caribbean Fisheries Management Council in December, and then recently to the SSC in May. So a little bit of background to start us off, some general goals of what stock assessments are used for. So stock assessments use models and data to determine if fishing yield is sustainable and to determine if stock size is above or below the level that can provide MSY. They are also used to quantify the uncertainty in the status of the stock and to provide management advice for optimizing resource utilization. So what do we mean if fishing yield is sustainable? Think of the bank account analogy, where if you take out more than what goes in, then the account will decline. But if you take out the same amount by which the account is growing, you can do that sustainably into the future. So using stock assessments, we can ask if current rates of harvest will cause the stock to decline, to stay the same, or increase. Not only do we want to know if the amount being taken out is sustainable or not, but we also want to identify the maximum sustainable yield. At any account size, there is a level that is sustainable, but there is a specific account size where the returns are highest. We want to have the population at that size. Recall that the goal is not to have the maximum sustainable amount of fish in the water, but to have the maximum sustainable amount of yield. Once we have all the data in the model, we can explore uncertainty, and we can run the model under different conditions to understand if the results are sensitive to the data. And when we have all three of those steps, those are documented and reviewed by scientists at the Southeast Fisheries Science Center through the SEDAR process with the Center of Independent Experts, and then by the Caribbean Fisheries Management Council, SSC, before becoming management advice for the council. So here is a diagram that kind of shows where the stock assessment comes from and where does it go. It's created in the SEDAR process with input from stakeholders and academics and data collection partners. We have the data workshop, assessment workshop, review workshop, and all that information that's documented in the stock assessment report, which is available on the SEDAR website. And then that gets reviewed by the SSC and council before going to become management advice. And so what sort of management actions exist right now? So we are here in the process of having presented recently to the SSC, and now this will be presented one more time to the council later in June. So here's a summary of management measures that are currently in place for spiny lobster. In St. Croix, there is a annual catch limit of 107,307 pounds, 107,307 pounds. And then you're also familiar with the minimum size limit. That brings us to the current stock assessment. And this slide is just going to tell you a little bit about what model we're using. So we are using stock synthesis. We also refer to it as SS. And SS is an integrated catch at age model. That means that it predicts and tracks cohorts of fish or lobster as they age, and all of the processes in the model are relative to their age. For example, we know population dynamics like the maturity of fish at given age or their mortality and growth, all tracked by the age of the fish. The model simulates the dynamics or characteristics of a biological stock, like growth, as well as characteristics of the fishery, like target size or fishing effort. This is a powerful tool because it's flexible with the types of data you can use and the types of stock and fishery characteristics that you can simulate. So in a moment, we'll review the data that were used in the current stock assessment, but this is an exciting tool to be able to continue incorporating as additional data as it becomes available. Stock synthesis is also a globally used modeling framework, so it's used around the world, and it varies in, the models can vary in complexity and types of data that are available, whether they're fishery dependent as we have, or whether there's also fishery independent or complementary, other complementary information that can be incorporated. So, yes, so the complexity of models varies, and that has to do with the types of data that are incorporated and the complexity of the model, with low complexity meaning that fewer parameters are estimated. So a summary slide here about how does SS work. So the data we have gives us pieces of information about reality. The model uses equations for various population and fishery dynamics to create a predicted reality. It searches over different parameter values, so the values that are used in the equations. It searches over those values to try and match the predicted data with the real life data. We want to have a good match between what the model predicts and the real data. We also want to have a believable values in the equations that are used in the model to predict the data, to create the predicted data. At this point, if we have a good match, we have a model that functions as the best available information for understanding the stock and the fishery. And you can use that model to ask questions about stock status, as well as, what will happen going into the future. We get to choose which values we want the model to try and solve for, and we call those estimated parameters. We also get to choose which values we want to force the models to use, fixed parameters. And so the decisions we make as to which values we solve for and which values are fixed often depends on the amount of data and the types of data that we have. So in the case for the current assessment, for things like growth and mortality, those were informed by biological studies and not estimated internally. But as we collect more data, those are some of the processes that can also be incorporated with this modeling framework. Just another comment about data, and as you'll see, a lot of the data that the bulk of the data that we use in the current assessment come from fishermen, and it's very important and useful to have this information because the model is trying to piece together, the model is just trying to essentially piece together those data. And so any doubts in the data or uncertainty in the data can be carried through to the model. So it's really important to have the best available data and to have your input and in the data review process, which we are very, excited and to continue having relationships where stakeholders come to the data workshop and review the data inputs so that we can be starting our models with the best available data. So here are the here's a summary of the two main data inputs that go into the St. Croix Spiny lobster model. The total amount of catch, which is mainly from the diving fleet, which increased to its highest point in the late 2000s and has since declined to lower levels. We also have the number of unique length samples, which are also used in the model to understand what's going on with the size of the lobsters that are being captured and measured in the TIP interview program, with fewer length samples in recent years and most length samples in recent years coming from the diving fleet. So an important topic that came up at the data workshop and the assessment workshop for these models was how to describe selectivity in the model. And so there are two types of selectivities that were explored. One is shown here in the top, which is referred to as asymptotic or logistic, where above a certain size, everything is retained 100%. So below a certain size, 0%, and above a certain size, 100% is retained. And that can kind of be visualized by, if you're smaller than the mesh size here, you're not retained, but if you're bigger than that mesh size, you are retained. So that's one type of selectivity that's common for fisheries. But another type of selectivity to consider that's important to consider is dome-shaped selectivity, which is more associated with like plate-sized fish. So there's kind of a window for which the most desirable sizes are sought out. And that's something that these models showed, and also something that was brought up in the data workshop about the reality of fishing in St. Croix, where the target fish, the target lobster are of the, a medium size. Here's a summary of the model structure. So in the model, we have two fisheries. We have a diving fishery and a pots and trap fishery, where, of course, diving makes up the majority of those lobster removals. We also have selectivity modeled as dome-shaped. And this was, I don't have the plot of the dome shape here, but this involves borrowing some information from St. Thomas. When it comes to model complexity, when we explore how the model performs, sometimes we use informative priors, which just kind of suggests what values the model might want to start out with in its process of trying to predict the real data that we have. We also had this model start with an initial fishing mortality of 0 because the landings in the early years were so low. Retention blocks were used in this model, and this reflects the minimum size limit. So selectivity is more just related to the gear, and the retention is related to the regulation in that, before 1985, there was no regulation heavily enforced with the federal removals regarding the minimum size limit carapace length of 3.5. But after 1985, there was, and we do see that in the data. So the time block for retention was from 1985 through the most recent year of 2016, and also carried into the projections, which are for the more recent years. There were two estimated quantities. One is the unfished recruitment, so the recruitment when the fishing mortality is 0, and the selectivity at length, so that dome-shaped selectivity. The conclusion of the stock assessment was not overfished and not overfishing. So here is a table where the really important values are just the ones highlighted in yellow, where the current spawning stock divided by the spawning stock that's estimated at MSY. So the spawning output that would occur when the stock is at MSY. So the current over that is 1.9. If that was less than 1, that would mean that it was overfished, but it is quite well above 1. And the other value that's important here that shows that there's no overfishing is the fishing mortality rate. The current divided by the fishing mortality rate that provides the maximum sustainable yield. And that's at 0.18. If this ratio was larger than 1, that would mean overfish, but you can see that the model shows that the stock is not experiencing overfishing. So that's the summary of the stock assessment. I also have a second presentation that goes into the projections that for more recent years. But before I move to that, I will see if there's any questions at this point.
I have a question, Edward Schuster.
Yeah, go ahead, Eddie.
Can you go back to the graph where the spike was and it went down in 2010?
This one?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Can you go back to the graph where the spike went down in 2010?
There might be a lag
There.
on the slide. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. So in 2010, was this because of the recession? I know it didn't hurt our evaluation on the stock, but I mean, I'm just curious to see what did you find out that it went down? It was up between 2000 and 2010, and then at 10 it started to go down. Was this when our recession occurred?
Yeah. There's quite a number of factors that have been affecting, the local fishery. So in order the recession, and then we were taking notes on a lot of those. I don't have them immediately at my fingertips, but yeah, these data reviewed at the data workshop did show this drastic decline over recent years.
Yeah. Then there was a comment that you made that it's like a selective fishing. It is selective, but it's selective to the point that it's anything from a 3.5 carapace and above. In a trap fishery, it's pretty different. I mean, Gerson, he could probably speak on that, but I think that everything that is pretty much legal, then it's a take home, except for something that's a real giant, and maybe it might just be consumed by the fisherman itself, or on special occasions like New Year's, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. I mean, the restaurants, they pretty much take anything that's above a 3.5 carapace. I mean, 3.5 and above carapace. So
Person for the record, we don't have any problem selling any size of lobster in St. Croix. Anywhere from legal size to 10, 12 pounds, we sell everything. We don't have no problem with that.
yeah, that was my comment. I mean, when you mention it's a selective fishery, I was specific to the point that the fishers, a lobster fisher, whether it be a lobster trap fisherman or a diver, once it's 3.5 carapace and above, they basically, consume it for retail.
Yeah, that's really good to that's good to definitely think about the differences across the islands and look into that further. So something that's a really important research recommendation that came out of these is to look into this relationship further, because when there's a dome-shaped selectivity, it means that there are large individuals out there that are not accessible. And so another relationship that matters, or question to ask, is, are there large individuals that are unavailable to the divers based on perhaps depth and things like that? So the selectivity kind of incorporates two things in that sense. It's it's related to the gear, but what gear you use is also constrains what habitats and what depths you're able to where you're able to fish. So a really strong research recommendation from these models was to independently kind of estimate and understand these selectivity relationships, because the difference of the assumption as to whether all the individuals above a certain size are selected for and available to you is very different to the assumption of how we interpret the length data from TIP, you know, with these relationships in mind. So it's good to have those comments, and definitely they align well with some of the research recommendations that want to be done to kind of ground truth what the models are predicting for the parameters that we estimated.
Adrian,
Yeah.
this is William Tobias. Two
Hello.
comments. In regard to your figure that you presently have, I agree with Gerson and Mr. Schuster that once the harvestable size is reached, everything is taken in that regard. As the fisheries biologist for the Division of Fish and Wildlife for 31 years, that's the general consensus. Lobsters, because they are too large, are not left. They simply find a different place in the market, whether they be for a party, for a special occasion, or for an individual that wants something that's larger. The plate size lobster, yes, refers to a lot of the restaurants, a lot of the market, but the large lobsters are not overlooked and are not left in that regard. And if you would please go back to the previous slide showing the graph of harvest or size measurements. Thank you. In regard to the precipitous drop in total catch, thank you. In total catch, our total catch and the number of length samples here related, because I worked for many years in sampling, and so did the other two individuals who retired with me coincidentally in 2010. And I know that because of lack of capacity, that the Division of Fish and Wildlife was not able to have field people take actual measurements, biostatistical measurements for the TIP program. So I want to make sure that that's very clear in that regard.
Yeah, thank you. So we did have folks from the department at the data workshop to be able to look into these TIP measurements with us, and we did discuss some of those factors, or like you mentioned, to lack of capacity. However, these are the the data that were deemed the best available through that review process, and so we have more details as to where and when they came from. Well, the department does, but those are things that we look into in great detail during the data workshop before we move on to the modeling phase. And each time the assessment is restarted, so the SEDAR process, those are steps that we take, and it's wonderful to have people's input when we have that level of detail and review of the data, as well as the input for the other factors to take into consideration, like that difference of how all lobsters above the harvestable size are taken. And so that was absolutely discussed, but it sounds like there's a lot more input that can be added in the next assessment, as well as discussing whether those large lobsters are available to you in equal proportions as the small ones are. So those are factors that will definitely come up again, because they're very good to get a higher resolution and detailed information for moving forward with a later version.
Hi, this is Nicole Angeli from the Division of Fish and Wildlife, and I just wanted to make the point that we're really cognizant here in the division of our lack of capacity to take those measurements between 2010 and currently, but upcoming this year we'll be both working with the Southeast Science Fisheries Center to have more port samplers, but also to help inform some of these SEDAR assessment issues with the Fisheries Independent CMAP program. We'll be doing specific spiny lobster surveys this year, and we have 2 new staff here in the St. Croix office. So we'll be we're hopefully ramping up to be able to collect some of this data and then see if there actually were these big differences that would help improve our ability to make the stock assessments, and hopefully take a look and see if, since we do have this period of time where we're using best available data, to see if there were huge differences and if those were validated.
As William Tobias, one additional comment in regard to total catch, and that is that catch reports are submitted by commercial fishers, and some individuals report extremely accurately, others perhaps questionably. And unless there is sufficient field sampling to verify the accuracy of those catch reports submitted, then that leaves a large question mark there in that regard. So the field sampling must go along to verify the catch reports that are submitted. If a fisherman indicates that he's caught 200 pounds of lobster on a particular day, the field sampling should be able to verify the accuracy of that.
Yeah, that's a great point, William. So for the just to clarify that these are the catches that are calculated from the reported landings. So these are from the log books, and these lengths are from the intercepts. And when we use these data and we move forward with them in the data workshop, something that also comes up is, these are the same data used right now for the current management advice. And so in my next presentation, you'll see where the current management advice compares to the management advice of the stock assessment model, and the levels. Yeah, so trusting the data for the current advice is similar for trusting it inside the model, especially because what we're getting out of the model is catch advice, for these data. So assuming, current reporting trends continue, if there's improved reporting, then that's something definitely to consider as we evaluate data into the future, and, need to potentially scale or correct or validate information. But another important factor is just it's really important to have the best available data and to have all of this input at the data workshop. And I encourage participation, because there's so much knowledge among among the stakeholders and the people who are actually on the water that they can share with us to help interpret the data. So thanks, William.
Edward Schuster, for the record, I have a question. Since you obtained the information from the catch reports from the fishers, did you include depth of where the lobster was harvested? Or
no, that has not been incorporated yet. I think another big step would be to incorporate indices of abundance that can account for depth and relate to some of these models have spatial components. I don't think we have the amount of data or the details of the data to do that right now, but it's maybe something other types of data details can be incorporated into the model. But yeah, go ahead, and will you tell me more about the depth relationship that you're alluding to?
no, the reason I said so is because a person could probably add or chiming into what I'm gonna say. There's probably a lot of larger size carapace lobster that exists, but a lot of the crazy divers, we call them crazy, not in a bad way, but because some have learned a valuable lesson and some have passed on to, you know, a different life, meaning that they did not make it because there were some divers that, you know, they did multiple dives at 130 plus a day, just with lobsters there are in abundance. And now everybody that basically dives, they don't really exceed 80 feet, really. So Gerson, if you want to comment on that, the depth factor would play a great part into this. Gerson, you there?
Yeah, I would like to do this download.
What's that?
Gerson, you need to get closer to the mic.
Nikki. Maybe he's not there. Yeah, so you know getting the depth off of the catch report from the fishermen probably would help with a lot of this, where you might see a spike or something, or usually after bad weather, then the shallows are, you know, repopulated. The lobsters come from the deep.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that's definitely a good direction for further research. And just the understanding of there being large lobster out there that are at sometimes unavailable is interesting to know. But what's really exciting about this model is as we quantify those kinds of relationships, we're able to incorporate them, and that's going to be great for adding for future versions of this model that can get a little bit more specific into some of those relationships. Any other questions about the STUC assessment?
I believe Nicole will have a question.
Go for it.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Natalia. This is Nicole, Griot Liaison for St. Thomas. I unfortunately missed the DAP meeting yesterday. Was this also done for the island of St. Thomas and St. John?
Yes.
And sort of going along with what Mr. Schuster asked, I think also the depth of the lobsters, the traps were set where the fishermen caught them, is pretty important as far as the size of the lobsters, because we have that same thing happening over here as well. So I'd like to see what happens if you all kind of like adjust the variables just a little bit. Is the chart available for viewing? Where can I see the data?
Yeah, so all of the data are in the data workshop, sorry, the STOC assessment report on the SEDAR website. So it's sedarweb.org, and then you go to SEDAR 57, and you'll see the report there.
You said SEDAR 57?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it.
No problem. Let me see something here. Okay, so I will be setting up the next presentation. Let me see something real quick here. So we did review the data in more detail, and in that report, you'll see different types of summaries about the data. So this is a very similar plot to what you were showing, what I was showing earlier, as well as, you know, we saw what the length compositions. But just something that I recall was discussed and really stood out in the data workshop was the large averages of lobsters that we have in St. Croix. particularly compared to places like Puerto Rico and St. Thomas. And so we did see that a consistently larger average above the minimum size limit. And it's a very good thing to know that the mean is well above the minimum size limit, because if there were concerns with overexploitation, then you would see a lot of fish, a lot of lobster just around that minimum size limit. And so this kind of points to the same healthy conclusion that we see from the stock assessment. So this is from an older presentation that was to the SSC, but all of these plots came directly from the stock assessment report. And there are others too that show more detail about the lengths and the model itself. So with that, I will end this presentation and pull up the second one.
Looks good.
Okay, so in this presentation, we'll be reviewing the overfishing limit and the ABC for the years projected forward. And we have this material, which was previously presented to the Caribbean Fisheries Management Council, SSC, in May.
Then that will tell us if it's effective or not.
Okay, so let's get started. So here we have a diagram that helps us understand the overfishing limit, the relationship between overfishing limit, allowable biological catch, and annual catch limit. So currently, annual catch targets are not used. So I'll talk about those slightly later, but let's focus on these three to start. And so the overfishing limit, it's the limit where overfishing is occurring and catches exceed. Overfishing is occurring when catches exceed this level. And so this is what we get out of the model. It's telling us, this is the level of catches that allows you to achieve MSY in the long term. So that is the specific estimate. However, since it's an estimate, there's uncertainty associated with that. And the ABC is the catch level reduced below the OFL to account for scientific uncertainty. And just to cover the terminology clearly, like overfishing, that means that the fishing rate of catch is too high. And the overfishing limit is projected such that it aims to get the fishery to the maximum sustainable yield, which is the largest long-term catch that can be taken under existing conditions. And then the difference between the overfishing limit, which we get from the model, and the acceptable biological catch, it's intended to, that difference is set by the SSC ABC control rule. And this acceptable biological catch is below the OFL to account for scientific uncertainty, which is uncertainty in the information about a stock. And its maximum sustainable yield reference points. Sources of the scientific uncertainty could include stock assessment results, time lags in assessment updates, projections, potential ecosystem and environmental effects, or other factors. So now we'll look at what the recent landings are. Recall that we can use a stock assessment to produce a forecast of landings of the overfishing limits for upcoming years based about what we know about the stock and the fishery. And so the model itself, we're able to incorporate more recent information, but some of that information is not yet complete for the available landings information. So in St. Croix, landings are complete through 2018, and 2019 data include records through early September 2019. That's the most recent data extraction that I have. So perhaps there's some, more recent data available, and I'll come back to talking about what we can do with more recent available data. But to create these initial projections for the years 2021 forward, 2019 and 2020 values were set equal to the averages from 2016 to 2018. And here's a way to visualize that. So we have the same time series we were looking to before with sizing in red and pots and traps in blue. And we have the, the final information from the data programs in those solid points, and then we have the values that were assumed for 2019 and 2020. So it's really important to have the most accurate information possible. So for now, these are they're in a way placeholders, because as that 2019 data becomes finalized, we're able to put in a more factual value. And as we hear more about 2020, and such as the discussions that you guys were having earlier, we're also able to use that information to help inform what value we use in the for 2020 landings, in order to then move forward with the projections for the future years. And so that's exactly what was done, as described so far. And so OFL was estimated by projecting the current fishing mortality beginning in 2021 using provisional catch estimates for 2019 and 2020. The projections assume that some of those important relationships that have been established from the model remain constant going forward. And here we have what those values are. And so we have our recent landings information in pounds, as well as the values that were assumed for 2019 and 2020. And then we have the projections starting in 2021. And what you'll see is that these values start a bit higher and then move towards that value of MSY. And the reason that that occurs is because while this MSY is the maximum sustainable yield, that's the yield that you can take, repeatedly year after year when the population is in balance, and you're taking out the same, as quickly as it's growing, you're taking that out, and that amount is maximized. These higher values are not sustainable yields, but because the stock is currently not overfished, the projection is set up to get the fishery to MSY. And so that allows a higher removal in a few years, just for a few years, to take advantage of the buildup of the fact that the stock is not overfished, and then move it towards the level that is stable and sustainable, the highest sustainable level. And so right now we're talking about OFL. Now we'll move on to talking about ABC. So these are the estimates of OFL for the upcoming years that we get out of the stock assessment. So to talk about ABC, there are two components. There's P-star and sigma. And I'll use this diagram here to explain them just a little bit. But so sigma relates to the uncertainty around the estimate of OFL. So in this example, we have low values of OFL going up to high values of OFL. And the highest bar reflects what this middle bar reflects the best estimate that came out of the stock assessment. So that's the OFL estimate. But there's uncertainty around that. Think of like the cone around a hurricane track. So there's the width of that uncertainty and is related to the scientific uncertainty. With, if we were really, really, really sure, then this would be very thin. But if there's uncertainty, and the value might actually be slightly lower, slightly higher, depending on, the different, just the sensitivity to those uncertainties, which is, so if there's uncertainty in what that value actually might be, then that means that there's this distribution around it, like the cone, and then the factor that plays into also accounting for,
mute, please.
Thanks. So the factor that goes into, accounting for that scientific uncertainty also plays in is P star, which is the probability of overfishing. And so the probability of overfishing here, when you're in the middle, right in the middle, it's about 50-50. So the value 50% likely could be higher, 50% could be lower. And so to account for the probability to account for the uncertainty of having this value a little bit unknown is to use lower probabilities of uncertainty. So by reducing the probability of uncertainty to now, instead of be 50-50, to be 40-60 or 30-70, that allows us to have a buffer for the scientific uncertainty and reduce the OFL. So I'm hoping that some of that makes sense. We can come back to this further, or perhaps if there's more questions on that, but I'll just go ahead and continue with some of the other graphics that we have here. So below we show the relationship of ABC over OFL for a range of P stars. So that's the probability of overfishing from 0.4 to 0.45. And initial sigma values of 0.5, 0.75, and 1, with the multiplier of 2 being how that gets factored in. And this is kind of the resulting ratio of what those differences are. And the first one of a sigma min of 0.5 shows kind of a range of the high 90s to the high 80s. And then the lowest, the highest sigma min of 1 shows something of a ratio of ABC over OFL from the high 80s to the low 60s. And those were the initial ranges that were being looked at. And the motion that the SSE put forward was to recommend the probability of overfishing from 0.4 to 0.45, as well as the sigma min of 0.5 with a multiplier of 2. So that shows that the recommended ABCs put in the motion from the SSE to the council is somewhere, representing the range covered by the triangles in this dotted line here. Right. And so that was the kind of relationship shown as a ratio. I also have the actual values here as well as plotted. And so just a couple important notes, which we've already reviewed, which the annual reported landings were complete through 2018. 2019 and 2020 values were set equal to the average landings from 2016 to 2018. This, again, can be revisited and updated when there are more information about 2019 and then more information about 2020. And there is these OFLs and ADCs would be coming into play into a future amendment. So perhaps the island-based fishery management plan. And so we are able to, incorporate the more recent information when it's available. So here we have the values, and we also have these plotted, but I'll just walk you through this real quick. Over here on the left, for the years 2021 to 2026, we have the estimated OFLs. And then to account for scientific uncertainty, we have what the P stars, what the ABC control rule would produce given a specific P star and the 2 times sigma min. And so those values, so the P star that we're looking at ranges from 0.4 to 0.45. And so the ratios that I showed on the last slide would actually be what you saw if you did that math here, but here are just the actual numbers. And then plotted in this graph over here, we see what the OFL is, as well as the high and low values shown in this table. so the P star of 0.45 and the P star of 0.4. Those are below the OFL, which account for scientific uncertainty. And what you see is what I mentioned earlier about how the initial projections overshoot the MSY, but the goal of the projections is to have MSY, since these higher levels are not the maximum sustainable yield. The maximum sustainable yield is this yellow line here, and we see that for projections, the goal is to kind of converge and get at the maximum sustainable yield. And just for reference, I've also included what the current ACL is of 107,000 pounds. That's the last slide. So I'll see if you have any questions about the ABC control rule and kind of the range of values from the motions that the SSC has put forth for the capsule.
Adrian, this is Gerson. Sorry, before I lost signal, I wasn't able to talk. I could only listen to you guys. So if you guys have any other questions for me, let me know, please.
Okay, thank you.
Ariane, this is Edward, for the record. The P star, these are just projections that the SSC had suggested. I was unable to attend the meeting for the week, but I'm kind of in question about it. So that's ABC on the first is equal to a 0.4. Is that a percentage in?
Yeah, that's the probability of, you can think of it as risk. And so, so this is the probability of overfishing. So when you have your range of uncertainty, right in the middle is 50-50, but if you reduce that, you kind of, you reduce your probability of overfishing, the probability that you might be on the side that is above the OFL, which is problematic, because if you're above the OFL, then that's indicative of overfishing.
Okay.
And the P star will be selected by the council, but the SSC has put forth a range recommended that they think accounts for, that's the recommended range from the SSC. And the whole goal here is to account for scientific uncertainty, just like like a hurricane track having a cone around it. You want to be able to not just put all your money on that one center estimate, because there could be some, because there is some uncertainty in the model, and so you have that slight range, and so that's what's showing the range and that buffer to account for scientific uncertainty.
Okay, so your P star on the last part of the graph of ABC P star equals 0.45. That's less than 50%. Correct?
Right. So let me go back. Yeah. So the P star of 50% would be the exact estimate of OFL. So that would have no accounting for, that would have no buffer.
Okay.
So yeah. So as you move further to the left and you increase your buffer, that's where you're reducing your probability of overfishing, so you're increasing your probability of not overfishing. So you're reducing your probability of the true value being higher.
Thank you.
No problem.
People need
and
to mute their microphones, please.
You have two disturbances, and then you have these.
Any other questions for Diane?
Adrian, I have a question. Gerson, you guys listening?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, in St. Croix right now, actually, we have been losing fishermen due to imprisonment, getting killed, or leaving the island for some issue. Do you guys think taking into consideration when, how should I phrase this? When the numbers are not being shown there because possibly these guys are not fishing anymore, does that show you guys any indication of, I don't want, let me try to explain it right. I don't want, due to the fact that we don't have enough fishermen in the water right now, those numbers decline, and then you might say the lobsters are not there because the lobsters are there. So do you have information on who is fishing and who is not fishing actually?
yeah, great question, Gerson. So just one quick clarification first, which is, you know, these predictions about the future projections are what the maximums could be. If they're not reached, then it's important to kind of factor that in and rerun these numbers, because like, for example, what you see here is because the numbers are low, that results, you know, these current estimates for 2019 and 2020 are low compared to what could be catched according to the model. And because we're saying that those values were low, there's a buildup in the population of lobster. And so that's why it results in higher catches the following year. So that's kind of like a buildup of the biomass in the water that's still available the following year. And so these projections are kind of assuming, let's use 0.45 as an example, that this is assuming that, you know, this is the limit, 174,363 for 2021. And if, you know, if the actual values caught by the fishery are much lower or much higher, those are instances where you would want to say, you know, we need to rerun these numbers because we have more information about what was actually caught. So if these values were drastically lower, there would be carryover to an extent that would be estimated to account for that buildup of biomass. And so, yes, the model is able to be reactive to more information of that sort. And right now it's saying that, you know, more effort is more removals are possible. And so does that sort of answer your question? Yes.
Yes. There's also something else that you guys need to carry into account. The fishermen over here don't necessarily do lobster year round. When the conch season opens, everybody shifts to conch because the demand for conch is great because we have been exporting to St. Thomas. So if for instance, if I don't have an order for lobster today and I have an order for conch, I will not catch a lobster. So in St. Croix, we don't literally just go out for lobsters alone. We do a mixed catch according to what is in the demand for that day or that week.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So these models are currently at the annual level, but it's important to know because there are higher resolutions, relationships that could be considered. Like, for example, you know, when the recruitment or when lobsters are available versus when they're caught and when they're recruiting. So those are higher resolution seasonal factors to discuss and potentially incorporate in future models. But at the moment, this is just kind of keeping the information at the annual level.
Yep. Thank you.
So would there be, Edward Schuster for the record, would there be further discussion at the council meeting later on this month about this?
Yes.
Okay. because I mean, I don't want to get repetitive in what I'm going to say here, but I guess I'll wait until the council meeting to go forward, because I don't want the lobster to become an issue as what the parrotfish did, as in terms of demand and marketable size. But like we said before, there's no problem with the sale of any size lobster here in the Virgin, well, in St. Croix. So
yeah, we will have ample time to discuss this at the council meeting, and this is not the last time we are going to mention the Spiny lobster.
okay.
You have 50 minutes to 12.
This is like very
Presentation
culturally unique.
by Dr. Michelle Duval, but you can extend 15 more minutes in case you need it for question and answer with Dr. Duval.
Does Ms. Duval want to speak now, or
Miss Dr. Duval is Michelle Duval.
Michelle Duval? Does she want to speak now in reference to the lobster, or?
No. Her next the next presentation is about the survey.
Oh, okay. Well, if anybody else has any questions for Lian, and if there's none, then we can move on to Dr. Duval's. Any more questions for Lian?
William Tobias question. Perhaps this is for Arian or maybe Michelle, or sorry, Miguel. St. Croix has a relatively small insular shelf platform that is heavily fished. And the recruitment obviously is not, for lobster, is not from St. Croix, given the long larval life cycle of a lobster. Probably, and I'm only estimating, with the long larval life cycle, by the time a lobster reaches marketable size, we're talking about a lobster here that's more than 3 years old. Are studies planned in the future for larval recruitment to something like St. Croix, which is more of an oceanic island?
That's a great question, William. Yes, so a strong research, a research recommendation to, further understand the dynamics of lobster would be to have, undersized, like indices of juveniles. And so those could be fishery independent or even cooperative research programs where, like potentially every small lobster is also measured to be able to know kind of what's coming in the production line. But there's between when the lobsters settle and when they become marketable, a lot can happen. And so it's interesting to see how strongly those indices of juveniles or pre-recruits correlate to what we see later for the adult lobsters, given the variability in the environment and things like that. So I really think it's interesting to develop indices of pre-recruits, and I think that's going to be a productive resource going forward. But I also want to keep in mind that the length data that we have, since we have it at the individual resolution, and we have the length data, when we have a lot of length data, we're able to even kind of track cohorts and understand that, you see them at a small size one year and then a larger size the next year, and be making up a larger proportion among the different sizes in a given year. And so seeing that's what the model uses kind of to interpret and understand the pulses that are available to the fishery. And the earlier we know about what pulse is coming in next year, that's going to be a really fantastic tool potentially for even more, for better kind of real-time predictions of what we expect next year to look like.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me today to share these, these exciting model results. And I look forward to continued conversations and future SEDARs and meetings where when I get to be there in person again.
Thank you, Ariane. Excellent information.
You guys all take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you. You be safe as well. Miguel, next on the agenda. Dr. Duval.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see the screen.
Great. Yes. Thank you. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to present to the advisory panel, and hello to everybody. This is something, again, like Adian, I'd hoped to do in person, but coronavirus has sort of changed everything. So I have just a quick update for you on the development of the Council's 5-year strategic plan. First, I'm just going to quickly review the project for folks who may not be familiar with it. Then I will quickly talk about the status of where we are and then the next steps given the pandemic moving forward. So in terms of the project overview, I just pulled a couple slides from a presentation that I gave to the Council during its August 2019 meeting. To help illustrate what we're undertaking here. And the first of those is really, what is a strategic plan? So a strategic plan is meant to guide an organization towards a clearly stated set of goals, and it should answer the 4 questions that you see there on the screen, which are, where are we going? So what's the destination or the vision? Where are we right now? What's the starting point? How will we get there? What's the journey? And then how will we know if we've succeeded? So what are the checkpoints along the way? And so you might wonder, why have a strategic plan? Well, one of the first things that can do is to help establish priorities and future direction. So as you all heard earlier and have experienced over the last several years, the Council has been working really hard towards reorganizing its management framework and moving from a single species approach to an island-based approach through the island-based fishery management plan. So a strategic plan can help set the Council's goals and priorities for what it wants to accomplish under this new management framework. It can also be used to allocate resources, which are staff time and effort effectively. There's not always enough resources to do everything that the Council would like to do. So this is a way for the Council to allocate the limited resources it has in an efficient manner. It can also allow the Council to plan for uncertainty or change. We're certainly living in a changing world right now, I think certainly this year. And while we can't always predict what those changes might be or when they might come, this is a way for the Council to plan for different scenarios that might occur. And then finally, it can be a decision support tool for the Council. So it can provide transparency to stakeholders regarding, why the Council made choice A versus choice B. And then it also provides for accountability in the use of resources. So why is the Council spending time and effort on one particular issue versus another? And so now I'm going to move on to the status of the project. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I came down to the Council's meeting in August of 2019 just to provide a presentation, an overview of the project, and to gain approval. But the project really started in January this year. We spent the next couple months developing the strategic plan survey, both an online version through SurveyMonkey as well as on paper, and we launched that in mid-March in both English and Spanish. It's accessed via the Council's website as well as on the Council's social media platforms. And in April, once it became evident that the pandemic was going to impact the schedule of this project, Miguel and I got together and talked, and the deadline for participating in the survey has been extended through July 31st of this year. So we recognize that everybody has a lot of things going on right now, a lot of other issues that they need to be focused on, and we just want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate. And I do want to give a big round of thanks to council staff, to Miguel and Diana for helping with the translation into Spanish, to Natalia and Cristina Olan for all of their work to get the links to the survey in both English and Spanish posted on the council's website, as well as on the council's Instagram and Facebook pages, and to Natalia and Iris for mailing paper copies of the survey out to council members and DAP members. And Diana also emailed the survey out to everyone. So this has definitely been a team effort. And so I did just want to talk really briefly about the purpose of the survey. So this is, about determining current concerns and future priorities. So what are the issues that are most important to people, and what do they think the council should be tackling next? It's a way to solicit new ideas or suggested improvements, whether that's for management approaches or ideas regarding data collection, etc. It's also an important tool to help understand stakeholder definitions of success. So, what is the vision that stakeholders and fishers have for the future of U.S. Caribbean fisheries? And then finally, this can really be a tool to help clarify what the differences are between the islands in terms of their concerns, priorities, and improvements that they would like to see in the process. And so the survey is set up to be, it's completely anonymous. We don't ask anyone for their name or phone number or email address or anything like that. And all the results are going to be compiled for analysis. But what we do ask is for some general information. And one of those pieces of information is, what roles do people play in the fishery? Are folks a commercial fisher, a recreational fisher, a for hire captain? Are they engaged in boat repair? Are they a representative of a non-governmental organization, or a representative for a commercial or recreational fishing organization? Are they a scientist, a government worker, etc.? And then the other thing we ask about is which island and region folks live in. So this is really important to help us distinguish between what the priorities are between the different islands. And then we ask people to just rate the importance of a bunch of different issues. So just, check a checkbox as to how important you think things are. And these cover issues such as resource health, cultural, social, and economic issues, management and operational issues, communication and outreach, and then ecosystem-based fishery management. And so I will just note that I haven't checked this morning, but as of yesterday morning, we had 131 responses to the online survey. I know that there are paper surveys that are out there. I wanted to give a shout out to council members Vanessa Ramirez and Carlos Farchetti for working with fishers and other stakeholders where they live to help them fill out the survey. But what you all can do is to help spread the word about this. So the survey can be accessed from the council's homepage. As soon as you go to the homepage, there's a beautiful banner that will pop up with links to the online survey in both English and Spanish. I also have those direct links here. As I mentioned, it's being posted regularly on the council's social media platforms. And then if folks would like a paper survey in either English or Spanish, that's also available from council staff. And so just in terms of next steps, how we're moving forward, this was our original timeline. That's kind of gone out the window with the coronavirus pandemic, but the blue check marks just indicate the phases that we've completed. So we're in progress with the survey administration right now. We had really hoped at this point that we would be presenting the results of the survey to you all in person, and then having a set of in-person outreach meetings, one set for each of the different island groups. And then we had hoped to have a draft plan ready for the council in December with a final plan by the end of April next year. And we've had to adjust that a little bit. So this is the adjusted timeline. So because the survey is staying open through at least the end of July, we'll be analyzing the results in the fall. So tentatively, we're looking at having this in-person public outreach in October, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But The results of all of the public input and outreach would be presented to the council in December, and then we're hoping to have a council strategic planning workshop sometime in March, separate from a council meeting, and then looking at developing the plan through the summer with a draft presented to the council in August, and hopefully a final plan by December of next year. And again, it's sort of dependent on what the pandemic throws us. So the question that we have for the district advisory panels really has to do with the communication and public outreach. As I mentioned, originally we had hoped to present survey results to the district advisory panels in person, and then go around and have a separate set of in-person island outreach meetings. And so the new plan is to tentatively do in-person public outreach in October. And so the question for you all as the council's advisors is, would you prefer one large in-person district advisory panel meeting or separate island-specific meetings? And we were thinking that we could combine the in-person presentation of the survey results with in-person public input on those results. So that's the question for you all here. We'd love some input. And then also, if it ends up that we have to do something by webinar, how do you all feel about hearing the results of the survey by webinar? And Miguel might want to jump in and expand a little bit more upon that. But Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. And so I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
There was one question that Dr. Duval made, and I was answered by yesterday's DAP St. Thomas. Is the meeting next year, would you like to have a separate meeting to discuss the survey, or would you like to have a joint meeting with the other two DAP?
That question is for everybody, or that question is for the chair? This is Gerson speaking.
It's for everybody, the DAP, voting member of the DAP.
Well, I would prefer all the islands together.
Sounds like me.
I agree. This is Marcia.
This
Together.
is Nicole Griot from St. Thomas. I agree with having us together.
Cedric from Puerto Rico, I agree for having us together.
Great. Well, that's really helpful input. I really appreciate that. So, Miguel and I will tentatively plan for one large DAP meeting where members of the public would also be able to see the results of the survey and provide their input as well.
This is Patricia Scow, and I agree with the other members. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question for Dr. Duval? Okay, if not, Mr. Chairman, that's all we have for the agenda today. And now we have other business in case you want to discuss something else. I just want to start that the DAP will, all the three DAPs probably will meet by the end of August. And in the case of St. Croix and Puerto Rico, what we need to do is to address some questions that the SSC and the TAP, Technical Advisory Panel for Ecosystem-Based Management, FMP, will discuss with the Council on June 23, 24th. And we will send you the information in due time. So we will have that webinar. It will be announced in July, of course, to comply with Federal Register timeline requirements. Anything else for other business? If not, Mr. Chairman,
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is Carlos.
Yeah, we know.
Since I have, I think it's 9 members of the DAP logged on. Oh, by the way, Tony Blanchard is connected from the St. Thomas, St. John council member. in case nobody. I don't think you're seeing his name, but
No,
he's
he
on
must be
board.
caller number 6.
Yeah. Yes. Anyways, since I have 9 of the DAP members here, I want to talk about, every one of you are members also of our St. Croix Fisheries Advisory Committee. And we were discussing formulating, we formed a subcommittee to talk about compatible regulations and to form a table between the federal and local as to what is and what is not compatible. So I want you all to start thinking about this, because I know it's very difficult for us to get together without, since we got to do it virtually all the time. But in the next council meeting, or maybe the one in August, I will be mentioning that we want to open discussions on compatible regs. And I really want to give a big thank you to Maria and the Zero staff for assisting me in organizing the table much better than what I had it. However, this compatibility cannot be accomplished without the DPNR being in favor of this and start the discussion. So since Angeli is on the call also, maybe we can talk by email or by phone as to how to move forward with this. I think it's important that we start working on compatibility. We've been talking about this for over 5 years. Also, although this is really a local issue, but since both, you all are also members of our FAC, Angeli, you requested a FAC meeting. If you're still on board with that, I need to know what platform you're going to use for the June 16th schedule. I already spoke to the stenographers, and they have already submitted their guidelines as to how to record that meeting for us. So maybe you can give me a call or an email and see if we're still on board for that meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, this is Nicole Angeli for the record. Just let me know the time. I'm not sure, maybe I missed communication about what time that was going to be on the 16th. But I believe we'll have access to a GoToMeeting that we'll be able to send around.
Okay. That's what he's asking, the platform. We need to know the platform so we can all log in on it.
Right, but I also haven't, I asked if there could be a time set up, if it was better for people during the day or in the evening, like our normal meetings. So I haven't heard back on the time.
It'll have to be on a normal meeting. That would be best. And I because everybody, well, most of
guys, this is something that is local. We should log the meeting and you can call them on yourself.
Okay.
It's not part of the DAP. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all we had. We can log now, and I can talk to Angeli when we finish here, because I have some news for her regarding these platforms and everything that are good news. So, anything else, Mr. Chairman?
No, not right now. If anybody else has anything in other business.
Okay, now you have to adjourn the meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I officially adjourn this meeting at 12. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Mr. Schuster.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye, bye, everybody. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Cuídense en todo.